Welcome, everybody. The Eastham Conservation Commission will hold a hybrid public meeting on Tuesday, June 10th, 2025 at 6 p.m. pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, MGL Chapter 30A, Sections 18 to 25, Open Meeting Law, MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, Wetlands Protection Act, and Chapter 155 of the Code of the Town of Eastham. And let's see. This meeting is being broadcast on Public Access Channel 8 and streamed on the town website at www.eastham-ma.org and on YouTube. It will be rebroadcast on Channel 8 and meeting videos will be available on YouTube. Before we begin, a quick reminder, while our meetings are relatively informal, the Conservation Commission uses a simplified version of Robert's Rules. The chair runs the meeting and everyone should speak through the chair after being recognized. Please raise your hand if you wish to speak. We allow discussion between commissioners, staff, and applicants and may extend that to abutters. For NOIs and RDAs, the applicant will present first, followed by discussion with the commission and staff. Once commissioners' questions have flowed, abutters will have a chance to speak, followed by other members of the public as time allows. The chair may set time limits if needed. Please keep your microphones muted unless it is your turn to speak, and let the chair know if you plan to record the meeting. Most importantly, please be respectful of others so that we can keep the meeting productive and focused. And then just an announcement, due to the special town meeting on June 24th, the Conservation Commission meeting on that date will be entirely remote on Zoom, and there will be no options to attend in person. Please plan accordingly. And finally, I will take attendance and we can begin. Janet Benjamin.
Here.
Joanne Cossett.
Here.
Greg Douglas.
Here.
Mike Harnett.
Here.
Chuck Wagner.
Here.
And Karen Strauss. I am here. Starting off tonight, we will have a presentation by Hillary Greenberg-Lemos, Eastham's Director of Health and the Environment, and Jackie Tupper from Apex Engineering on the town's wastewater project, after which there will be an opportunity for some questions and answers. Hillary and Jackie.
Okay, let me try this again. I'm going to share the screen. I haven't been in charge of running the slideshow and talking, so this might be task me. We did do a tour of the Orleans plant today with a number of folks from the community, and I'm sorry I missed the saltwater dock regulation discussion. I was pulled into a question and answer session at the library. So with that being said, here we go. I also want to say I abbreviated the presentation. I told Karen, Jackie and I were going to take a total of 20 minutes. So I cut out some pieces of the presentation that you may have seen. Happy to answer questions. We mainly cut out the noise, the odors, the neighborhoods and what we're doing to satisfy some of their concerns, and the financial piece, which is all important, and it is all available on the town website for those that want to learn more about that. But here we go. So the presentation is going to be given tonight by myself and Jackie Tupper from Apex Engineering. This is the rest of our team that has been giving presentations and working to bring this project to fruition. We have another team of consultants from GHD that are working on design of the treatment plant. And this is a breakdown of every vote we took to get the water system passed. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. And this is what we've done on wastewater. We do have another slide that goes into a bit more detail about this, but suffice it to say, we've been working on these projects for years and years and years. This is the Nauset estuary, and this is the system we're focusing on first because of the degradation level. And the history, as I see it, goes like this. In 2008 and 2009, Eastham began working with Stearns and Wheeler on a wastewater management plan. And after that evaluation, we got the news back that a water system would be the priority. while we continued to work on wastewater. So that's why we ended up moving forward with the drinking water system first. So that's a question we get a lot. From 2009 to 2012, the Cape Cod Commission was designated to identify nitrogen sensitive areas and work with towns to establish nitrogen reduction goals and find paths to implement changes. This was also required in the 208 plan, and it was the direct result of the 208 management plan that you should all be familiar with most recently, which talked about lawsuits and why we weren't doing enough and how we were going to move things along faster. From 2012 to 2016, we began work to identify strategies to reduce nutrients in our ponds and our estuaries, while design and construction of the water system began. Our wastewater efforts focused on Boat Meadow, Herring River, Wellfleet Harbor, Rock Harbor, Nauset Harbor, Salt Pond, and Town Cove. And at the same time, in 2012 and 2013, this commission permitted alum treatments in Herring and Great Pond. Just prior to that, in 2011, Eastham completed a pond action plan. And I think some of you were present at our pond workshop where we spoke in some very fine detail about what's going on and the state of our ponds. That's also available online for anyone who might want to catch up on that. So in 2017, we began a planning process built upon all of that prior work, and we completed the Massachusetts Estuaries Project, and we developed the Targeted Watershed Management Plan, which laid out specific strategies that we were going to use in Eastham to remediate the Nauset Estuary first. In 2023, town meeting approved money to design a collection and treatment facility. Going back to 2018, we began treatment for Phragmites in Schoolhouse Minster ponds, followed for 2 years after that. In 2019, we conducted hydro raking in Schoolhouse Minster Pond. In 2020, we installed the aerator. And going from 2020 to the present time, we've been working on design of a permeable reactive barrier to enhance denitrification in the groundwater moving to Salt Pond. So all of these things combined together are all of the work that we've been doing to remove nitrogen from our estuary. In 2024, we completed the Targeted Watershed Management Plan, and we received a certificate from the Secretary of Environmental Affairs approving the plan that we put forward. DEP at the same time changed the Title V regulations requiring innovative alternative systems in nitrogen sensitive areas. We filed a letter of intent with the state to indicate that our plan to move forward was to obtain a watershed permit for this Nauset estuary and begin working towards our nitrogen mitigation goals. And finally, we contracted with Apex and GHD to design this collection and treatment system. We also have ongoing work on stormwater mitigation projects on and around Salt Pond. So that is a brief history. And I think I'm going to hold questions till the end, Karen, so I can stay true to our 20-minute time, if that's okay with everyone. So the next slide, why do we need a wastewater management plan? I think you all know best why we need one, but the effects of nutrient loading and bacterial contamination span the spectrum from environmental to socioeconomic impacts and have direct consequences to our culture, our health, our economy, and our tax base. We know that high levels of nutrients can cause shellfish closures, beach closures, pollution surges during storm events, low dissolved oxygen causes fish kills, degradation of critical habitats, increased vegetation and algae, and increased health advisories. And it's also important to take note of the regulatory compliance, because as much as we love our natural resources, there's also a regulatory driver here. We need to meet the TMDLs established by the Massachusetts Estuaries Project to be in compliance with the Clean Water Act, and we need to make strides towards mitigating our nutrients, and this is our way. So the next slide, this is our Targeted Watershed Management Plan. It's available on the town website for anyone who wants to read it in depth. I think you've all by now received the warrant that goes into some detail about why we're doing it, what this plan is, what this plan says. But this is our roadmap for compliance. It's reviewed and approved by the Mass DEP, and it allows us to preserve our environment while allowing for some sustainable growth and future development. It outlines our collection and treatment system, stormwater approaches, permeable reactive barriers, use of IA systems, collaboration with both Wellfleet and Orleans, whom we share watersheds with. It talked a bit about shellfish aquaculture and a few other smaller options that are also being looked at, like a layer cake method of IA systems. And there are some other new technologies that we hope will hit the market in the near future that might prove useful. The other thing I want to say here, because we get a lot of questions about, is development. And so a sewer does not equal an increase in development because we're required to have growth neutral regulations or a bylaw that maintain our existing levels of development so as not to increase dwelling units, septic loads, and demands on infrastructure. So the focus is on current needs because of the capacity and infrastructure limitations that we have. Another piece I like to talk about is the nitrogen removal. So nitrogen from a standard Title V gets down to around 35 milligrams per liter. An IA system can get us to 19 milligrams per liter. There are some, I believe there's 2 technologies, enhanced IA systems that can get down to 10 milligrams per liter, and the treatment plant can get us down to 3 milligrams per liter. We were in Orleans today, like I said, and they said their average is around 2.4 milligrams per liter, which is pretty phenomenal. Moving forward, this is phase 1. We have since changed the map to show all one color. Everything that's tan, light green, or dark green is included in phase 1. If you want to know if your property is included, there's an interactive database on the town website where you pop in your address and it comes up as a dark blue or light blue. Dark blue means you're in phase 1, light blue means you're in phase 2. All of the properties highlighted in that map will be required to hook up to the sewer system. There may be some leeway for properties that have IA systems in the ground, depending on the age of your system, how it's functioning. We have to still discuss that in regulation and see what that's going to look like. But all of the properties will be required to connect. There are 786 properties in phase 1. The collection area runs around Salt Pond. It extends from Old Orchard to Nauset to Schoolhouse and adjoining roads. It also extends down Route 6 to Brackett Homes, and it includes the Tea Time property. From start to finish, we expect that construction will take 3 years. So that's our most hopeful guess at the amount of time it will take to construct. We get a lot of questions on why the treatment plant is located at the DPW site. It's honestly the best location we have for a number of reasons. In our efforts, we did look at Sandy Meadow, Tea Time, the North Eastham Sandpit, Cape Cod Children's Place, and each site has its own complexities. Children's Place wasn't suitable for a treatment plant because of the topography of the lot and the amount of vegetation and land work that would need to be done. Tea Time, the Sandpit, and the DPW are all in Zone 2 areas of our public water supply, and Tea Time had capacity issues, so sizing wasn't right, and the Sandpit would need a lot of clearing of undisturbed areas. And the most important reason that we went with the DPW is the amount of time it takes for groundwater to travel to our drinking water wells. You can see here we have our 3 wells, the District G well, the Nauset Regional High School well, and the District H well. The transfer station site does not reach the District G well or the Nauset Regional High School well, and it could take around 29 to 125 years to reach District H wells. Tea Time, the water flowed from recharge to all of the wells, so that site was ruled out, and the sand pit flowed to 2 as well. So as you can see, the best site really is the transfer station site. Jackie, take it away.
Thanks, Hillary. So I guess just to start off, this is just showing you what the treatment plant building on the left looks like in Mashpee, who GHD was the designer for. So we've decided to keep the look and make it really similar to how Mashpee looks, with the goal being obviously make it look nice, not like an industrial building, and try to match the Cape Cod character. And then on the right is showing what we'll have in Eastham. So we'll have two separate buildings. That top building is closer to Old Orchard, and the back building is right next to the bike path. So that front building, the operations portion, would just be office space for the operator, conference rooms, things like that. And the other half would be the filtration processes. And then the back building is where most of the treatment of the wastewater will occur. That front part is all enclosed with a roof. And then the back part is all tanks that will have some type of covering over the top. Then this is just kind of going through all the different treatment steps. So you start with the collection system. We're looking at around 75,000 linear feet of pipe in that phase 1 map that Hillary showed. We're still trying to figure out, we're in the middle of the design, around like 50%. So probably around 2/3 we were looking at would be gravity sewer, which just means what it says, it's flowing by gravity. And then the other third, we were looking at low pressure systems, and that's all based on topography. With the gravity main, we're looking to keep it at 15 feet deep maximum. Any wider than that, it's just huge excavations, and it's just cost prohibitive as well. And then low pressure is around 5 feet, and that's pipe actually under pressure. In low pressure mains, each property would need what's called a grinder pump to pump it up to the main. And then in some instances in that gravity system as well, if your house is below the road, you would also look to have grinder pumps, which is being supplied as part of this project. So from there, you'll get to the main lines. We're looking at 5 different pump stations throughout phase 1. And from there, they'll pump through a force main into the headworks part of the treatment plant in that back building. So in that main headworks room, that's where you have preliminary treatment, which is screening, grit removal, things like rags, and it's just essentially manual removal through bar racks. From there, we have a pre-equalization tank to kind of regulate flow, to make sure we have a equalization tank. We'll wait for a certain volume and then move into what's called an SBR, sequencing batch reactor treatment process. So we have 2 of those tanks, depending on the size. And also just to mention, Hillary brought up phase 1 and phase 2. The plant right now is designed for phase 1 and phase 2. So 10, 15 years down the road, if we look into phase 2, we don't have to build a bigger building. We can keep the same footprint and tank space. So an SBR goes through, first step is aeration. You're adding dissolved oxygen to the water to allow the bacteria to eat away and process the organic matter. From there, we're also adding a coagulant. We're looking at polyaluminum chloride to help settle the waste on the bottom. And that sludge will then go into an aerobic digester, where it's more anoxic conditions and you're just breaking down that sludge even further, dewatering it, and that's what gets removed from the site. So far, we're estimating around once a week for phase 1 that they'll need to remove sludge. And the sludge goes to the aerobic digester, but then the supernate goes to tertiary treatment, which would be the filter discs that are in the first building. And then from there, it goes through UV disinfection, which we opted for instead of chlorine, just because it's more effective for wastewater and we can save on because the hazardous nature of chlorine. And then from there, it goes into the sand beds, which is simply really just open air sand beds that gets pumped in. And we're looking at 6 different ones at this point on the site. I think this slide, we just to cover, we went with an SBR treatment process kind of as the main highlight of the tank, just for capital cost savings, flexibility, ease of operation, and I had mentioned before we also chose UV disinfection. I think here we just wanted to cover, you could see the 2 treatment buildings that were on the other slide. The other small kind of purplish square near the operations building is just from where it will pump into all of those recharge beds. So the orange are the recharge beds, and we're looking at a certain square footage. Most of them are around 100 by 125 feet. And that's all based on DEP requirements for recharge rates of our permit. And let's see what else. So we're keeping the DPW building in the same spot. The bottom left corner, we were just moving the salt shed. So that's nothing new for wastewater. And then that green area towards the middle is kind of what GHD is designing for a stormwater basin, just to handle all of the stormwater on site. Yep, so just for a timeline, we'll have the special town meeting vote June 23rd. And we chose that date because of our involvement in the state revolving loan fund to get funding for the project. So they gave us a June 30th deadline to let them know whether or not we're participating in the program to get more loan forgiveness, grant funding, 0% loans. And if that all passes, then we'll submit the design to SRF in October, go through the final design phases, and then put the collection system out to bid probably around a year from now, or more like April, May timeframe. Have a contractor by June of next year, and then look to start construction in fall next year. That's it.
Thank you. So I guess we're opening it to questions from the commission. Anybody? So Janet.
This is probably a little late to ask this, but what effect is there with people not pumping their septic systems for maybe 15 years?
Well,
Is there any?
Well, there is, because we generally recommend that you pump your system every 3 years to get the solids out, because that increases the functionality and the efficiency of a Title V system. So without doing that, you have more solid carryover into the leach field. There's more solids in your tank that degrade its efficacy.
But it really doesn't have much effect on the nitrogen seeping out. Is that correct?
No, nope, not so much on the nitrogen level.
Okay. Thank you.
Joanne?
Yes, so I just wanted to ask about in the construction and the design of the treatment facility itself, kind of what safeguards are there, if you have any information on it, to anything like breaking of the tanks or leaks. We're going through all this trouble to try and protect our groundwater and the sensitive area, but the plant itself is still located in that area. So what's the potential for some sort of malfunction at that plant to then kind of cause its own environmental problem? Thanks.
You want to take that, Jackie? Yeah, I don't.
That's a really good question. I think there's just standard safeguards. I'm trying to think. So
Or maybe
guess
it's like in the balance, 50 years of, treating the ground, treating the wastewater is better than, the potential for a leak, but it does present kind of a potential, I don't want to use the word disaster, but there could be a large singular problem that pops up as a result of something like a leak.
So I think, just based on my tour today and my prior tour, there are so many gadgets and electronic equipment and alarm systems and flashing lights that are built into the treatment plant itself for safety measures that I'm pretty sure well before a catastrophic event occurs. And I think we could have asked Dan more specifically, but there are readings in every room. There's all kinds of equipment and safety protocols in place I know that's not a very direct answer, but I know that it is designed into the system itself.
And that's a good point. Like they call it SCADA instrumentation. So you
That's really
have all
close to
the manual-
Skynet, so just as long as the plant's not taking us over like in the Terminator, I think I'm okay.
And there's a generator there that runs this system, so you could see the pressures in the lines and the amount coming in, and it's really advanced, quite honestly.
So they're like backups to the backups.
Yes,
You see the problem
100%.
coming. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Mike?
I'm sure this has come up before. Is there an odor issue, like the one in Orleans? I don't know how long it's been running, but has there been? Because some of the older plants,
Yeah, so I can speak to this. We pulled out our slides on odor and noise, just in the interest of time. But our plant is different than Orleans because number one, Orleans takes in septic from septic haulers. Our plant is not going to take in any septic from septic haulers, so our waste all enters underground. That's number one. Number two, the sludge removal at our plant occurs inside in a lockdown facility, and our plant will have a carbon filter that mitigates the smells before they go out into the environment. So the only part that's outside are the sequence and batch reactor basins, and those don't have a smell associated with them. We were there today on a high humidity, pretty dense cloud cover day, and there was no smell. I mean, you could sniff in and sniff out. There's just no smell. There's smell in the headworks room and there's smell in the sludge removal room, but there's no real smells associated with the external basins. And we are designing covers for them, so they will be covered even though there is no smell.
Greg?
Yeah, the question I had was, is there any storage or like emergency storage for material? Like if something happens or the plant does break down and you need to spend a week fixing it, is there some type of storage system that could accept material temporarily?
So we'll have the backup basin for the expansion. And then today I asked that question to Dan. I think I asked him in a slightly different way. I wondered if there's a power outage for several days, you know, what does that look like? And so we know some people have generators, some people do not. And he made the point that when the power's out, you're actually not using a whole heck of a lot of water. You're not doing laundry, you're not really cooking, you're not cleaning. You know, there are certain things you do, like you're going to continue to flush your toilet if you're on town water, but that's really about it. You're not heating your hot water heater. So there's not a lot of water that actually gets used during times of power outage, where I think that's a common misconception that we use all of this water, but when the power's out, we're actually not.
Right.
And there is a bit of storage in the lines and in the pump stations to actually hold some of that.
Great. And I had a second question. In 5 years, once the system's in place and operational, everything's going perfectly, what are we going to do about the rest of the town that's not being covered by the sewer system?
So we have phase one and we have phase two. That's all we can commit to right now. We have areas of direct discharge into Cape Cod Bay, which we're not going to do anything about in the near future. We have Herring River, we have Wellfleet Harbor, we have Boat Meadow. Those areas we're still working on. We only know we can go as far as phase one and phase two with this treatment plant, and the collection system that we're working on is just for phase one. So I think we're going to have our work cut out for us to complete phase one and phase two. We're hopeful in that amount of time that there'll be some newer technology or some other options available to us.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions that are more maybe process than environmental. I'm wondering how much power, how much energy the wastewater plant is going to use.
Jackie, I think that's you.
I don't know if I know it off the top of my head. I can look it up and get back to you. I know because we did a report on it because we were looking into doing solar panels as well. I know part of that.
Yeah, I just had a conversation with the climate committee on where in Eastham we might site some of those solar panels, but I was just wondering how much might be needed. And then the other one is just the construction phase. So fall 2026, you would start with the facility, I guess, and then you would spread out to do the piping around town, and then the pumping stations. And at what point would the homeowners be connecting?
Not until all of the collection lines are in and the treatment plant is built. So no sooner than 3 years from the start of construction.
Just looking ahead, because at some point we'll probably be permitting
For sure.
various things here, and especially how we would deal with maybe figure out how to make it easier for homeowners to get the permitting done ahead of that comes to mind.
When you did the water system, did you permit the whole system?
I was not on the commission at the time. Mike, were you?
No, I
We-
wasn't.
So we had permitted, I think water, we had phase 1 and phase 2. So we had separate orders of condition for each for the construction. And I feel like water, we really just had harm's way. Well, sensitive.
Our favorite street. Okay. So I'm assuming that phase 2 would be permitted separately since it's not really in the radar for a number of years down
Correct.
the road. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Any more questions?
Yeah, one.
Go ahead, Chuck.
Why are we not considering using the land that the town has that's contiguous between Nauset Road and Ocean View? There's more than 160 acres of open land. The topography tips the other way, so the groundwater wouldn't drain toward any populated areas. And nobody has to have a sewage treatment plant across the street from them.
Do you know which property this is, Jackie? I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
thinking like District H across from the senior center. That area.
Yeah, there's a wellhead protection district there, I believe.
Yes. Yep. So we didn't look at that for that reason, the wellhead protection, and then like the significant, I don't know what the, like endangered species, like we have our well there, and it's surrounded by a ton of vernal pools, the endangered spade-foot toad. So I know it was really a conservation area that we didn't want to disturb. And I was just pulling up the report because I knew I had it somewhere. So at the 30% design, we were looking at 682,000 kilowatts per year for the plant.
Okay. That's quite a bit. Alrighty, thank you. Anybody else? I think it's probably time for us to move on to the rest of our meeting. Thank you very much, Jackie and Hillary, for presenting and answering our questions.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, we have a request for determination of applicability filed by Gail Bedoukian. Applicant proposes to flush cut 23 invasive Japanese black pine trees and plant beach grass at the property located at 18 Horton Way, map 07, parcel 493A. And I believe you're at Town Hall. If you would please identify yourself and if you'd like to give us an overview of your project.
Sure, thank you. It's Gail Bedoukian, 18 Horton Way. So I'm back here. Back in 2014, the commission allowed us to flush cut all the invasive pines on the coastal bank and other dead plants and invasives. I think it was a successful project then. It allowed us to stabilize the bank with planting of American beach grass. It's now 11 years later. Their saplings have sprung up and are growing, and some of you may have noticed during the walk that some are browning, some are dying, and they'll continue to do so based on our experience since we bought the house in 2013. And what they do is they bring down the bank. So I'd like to take the same approach you allowed us before and stabilize the bank again with abundance of beach grass in a matrix. I believe this application for request for determination is the proper avenue for the work based on the wetland regulations at 310 CMR 10-022B1. I consider this a minor activity in a sense within the buffer zone as it is work performed in a manner so as to reduce the potential for adverse impacts to the resource area during construction and with post-construction measures implemented to stabilize any disturbed areas. We'd recommend we do this work in the fall so that the timing of the optimal time for beach grass planting is in the like November through May. We also like to request, so we don't have to come back again, that after the 3 years that I'd be allowed to continue to do this maintenance practice, giving the conservation notice, when we'd be doing it. In the past, you allowed us to do 2 applications of fertilizer, and I don't know what the commission's position is on that. I will say, though, that it really does help the growth in the beginning. It's 2 applications, I believe, you allowed us, and we requested. But I understand that you may not allow that anymore. So that's my presentation, and you have to take some questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just going to start with the Wetlands Protection Act, and you refer to 10.022B, and that refers specifically to activities in the buffer zone, and your work is proposed on a coastal bank, which is a resource area. So that does not apply here. And I'm going to come back with my questions later, but I'm going to ask those who are out at the site visit to go first and talk about what they saw there and ask their questions on the project. Janet?
First of all, I'm not sure that the trees they wanted to cut down were marked. I didn't see anything. I don't know whether Greg or Alex or Mike did. Secondly, more importantly, it looked to me as if the trees with the beach grass were holding the bank in place and helping it not erode. I'd be very concerned about cutting the trees, even if they were flush cut. I don't see the advantage of putting beach grass in when those trees are already there and they're pretty stable. I can understand, I did see one at least that wasn't doing well, but several of them did look healthy. So those are my comments. I think the bank is very stable the way it is. I don't understand why you'd want to make it less stable, in my mind, by cutting the so-called invasive Japanese black pine trees. Thank you.
Mike?
Excuse me, I agree with Janet. There are black pines north and south of this property that are doing quite well. I could see if a tree is sickly or diseased, we could take it out, but just to remove it because it's a black pine, I think is incorrect. Ecologically, this tree is suited for this kind of environment. It will thrive there. I think it's a plus. That's about all I got to say.
Greg?
Yeah, I agree with Mike and Janet on that issue with respect to, it seems like you would undermine the bank by taking them out at this point, given that they've been growing there for almost 10 years now. And is that a concern for you at all with regards to stability of the bank once you remove all these trees?
Are you asking me that question?
Yeah.
Oh, well, our experience has been that the pine roots push down the bank, and you cannot grow anything underneath them. So I don't agree that, based on my experience living there, that the pines are suitable. Yes, they're growing, but they're also, you know, invasives, and Massachusetts has banned these from the state, even selling them. So you can't grow beach grass underneath these, you know, under the limbs, and then that's what brings the bank down. So, you know, I don't agree that it stabilized the bank. You know, as they grow, these saplings are growing, and then they end up, you know, they grow, I don't know, 10, I have one, I was telling Mike earlier, I have one that's like 30 feet tall on the top of the bank, and it just died, you know, between September, and it came back about a month ago. It's just dead. So if we allow them to continue to grow and then die, then the bank becomes unstable because you can't grow beach grass. So as far as them not, should I respond to some, do you have any follow-up questions? Because I would like to respond to some of the other.
Yeah, I was wondering, how much bank have you lost in the last 10 years? Given that the rate could be one, if you didn't have the revetment and the sand there, have you lost a substantial amount of the bank?
Well, it's interesting you say that. As soon as we flush cut them back in 2014 when we had the permission, the bank became very stable with the beach grass that we grew. I thought it was in much better shape. Some locations, I don't know if you noticed, when the commissioners were there, those that were there, there's like one or two that is just a trunk, and you can see the bank is sheer there, sort of towards the top. I don't know if you noticed that. And so it's very unstable. So I can't, once you're flush cut and you plant the beach grass, what we found is that it sort of stabilizes the whole area and makes it, you know, much better. And that's been our experience. And I'm just really surprised how much these saplings have grown. You know, they were little, you know, I would say for about 5-8 years, there was nothing there. And then they started to seed themselves. And I was quite surprised when I came back how much they've grown. So, and it kills the beach grass, which I think is, you know, is a native, and I think it's a better thing for the banks. You know, so, you know, in my experience too, I know, you know, our neighbors have, you know, pines, but down below where the wetland is, there's nothing growing because of the roots. And, you know, to the north, most of the pines are died. And people that have not requested putting beach grass, you can see there's these sheer sections of sand. So I don't think that is stable, personally. And, you know, I've tried to be a real steward to this property. I've taken it very seriously. So.
Well, thank you.
Okay. Joanne, you, and then I'll go to me.
So I'm looking up the Japanese black pine, and it does have a propensity to outcompete native species, and then eventually when it dies off, it prevents native species from being able to reestablish. So it can eventually lead to erosion problems. So I don't think I would have a problem with the removal of the pines, but I would have a problem with their removal all at once. I think this would need to be done. There are a lot of pines in that bank, and it would need to be done slowly and carefully. So I don't know that there was a detailed enough plan for me to be comfortable with that. But I did want to say it does look like while initially the roots can prevent erosion, it eventually outcompetes all the native species, pushes them out, and then when it dies, you end up with a bunch of erosion. So I actually would support removal of the trees, but in a very slow, deliberate way. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So I think it's a lot of trees to remove all at once. And I disagree somewhat with Joanne here, and tend to agree more with Janet and Mike. The black pine was brought to Cape Cod, the Japanese black pine to Cape Cod in the late 1880s, specifically because it has deep roots and grows well in sandy soils in order to be used for dune and coastal bank stabilization. So it has deeper roots and provides stabilization to the bank. So I'm not in favor of taking them out. I would be in favor maybe of perhaps, I would be in favor of removing any ones that are dead. And I did notice, looking at the photos of the site, that there are a number of stumps sticking up that were not flush cut. And I was wondering if that was from the 2014 project that had been permitted. And then I wonder about replacing with beach grass when there are other shrubs that are perhaps more deeply rooted that would provide better stability on this bank than simply replacing beach grass. And in addition, it takes 4 to 5 years for the black pines to reach maturity and then set cones. So you're going to have seeds coming up over time. And I'm not in favor of letting them grow up enough so that you have to go back in and flush cut. I'd rather see a program where you go in and you collect cones and you pull out seedlings by hand and cut saplings as they come up, rather than allowing something in perpetuity, and in perpetuity in particular in an area where we have changing sea level conditions and increased storminess and intensity of storms. We want that bank to remain as stable as possible and not have work done without sufficient oversight. That's where I am. And Janet, you have more?
All from the Cather.
Can you ignore that?
Yeah,
Okay.
did you have additional questions?
Yes. First of all, the black pines were growing with the beach grass. So the beach grass is growing with the black pines. Second of all, I don't have a problem with flush cutting the dead Japanese black pine trees. As I said, I didn't walk down to the base of the slope, but I did see at least one that looked dead. But I would also like the homeowner to mark the ones they'd like to cut. So I don't really think, from seeing what we saw this morning, that the Japanese black pine being there negates other so-called non-invasives from being there. And secondly, according to Massachusetts, I believe nurseries have until the end of the year to sell out their stock, and after that, they won't be permitted to stock them. But there's nothing that I could see that stated they should be removed. Thank you.
Did you want me to respond to some of the other points that the commissioners made?
Sorry, I was muted. If you would like to respond, we'd
Sure.
appreciate it.
As far as not marking, I have some bad knees, and I asked Amy and Alex, you know, would that be a problem? And then they suggested that I do this diagram drawing, which I assume that you all had, and I had pictures. So, you know, that was why, and they thought this would be sufficient. So, you know, I apologize if that was a problem. As far as, I have no problem removing them slowly and carefully. I do believe, yes, Janet, the beach grass is growing, but it really is not growing where the pines are. And that's, you know, as Joanne pointed out, that's the problem, you know, with stabilizing this bank, you know, with keeping, you know, so many of these saplings that have grown. And I agree, too, that, you know, I'd rather have a program where I could cut the saplings rather than having them grow like this, because then, you know, my beach grass or other, you know, plantings, if we talk about that, it would be more successful, for sure. And I would like that. That would be a great idea. And as far as the stump sticking up, at one point, there was some of the growth was still on some of these, and I guess the arborist, you know, made a decision how he did it, and I don't know why exactly, but I know that a couple of those dead things that you saw that were high, I think that was why, but I can't be sure. I always thought it looked a little odd myself, but and I guess that's it. I mean, I'm okay with doing things slowly and carefully. I'd be happy to, you know, as you said, cut some of the dead stuff. There is some really good, nice. I don't know if you noticed. There's some really good oak, which is native, and a lot of it's dead in some sections. If it can flush cut some of the dead stuff, that growth will really, the oaks will really take off, and I think that's a really good native ground cover that's there. You know, I have been successful with bayberry, not bearberry. I have very, very difficult time growing bearberry, but that's a possibility as well. And there are also some, you know, nice tall grasses that might work too. So it is my hope that, you know, I can do some of it and start, in my opinion, better stabilize the bank, because it, as I said, if once we, and as Joanne pointed out, once these things grow, it really does cut out the natives that you want growing. And once they're dead, you've lost a lot of area because they can't grow. So thank you.
Let me ask Alex if you have anything you want to add to this conversation. It sounds like we might be asking for a different plan than just straight on cutting, that we might want to ask you to come back with a more detailed kind of phased plan for the location. But Alex, do you have anything you want to add here?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly recognize, you know, the benefit of removing an invasive species from the coastal bank, but I would want to ensure that it's done so in a way that doesn't destabilize the bank. So I think when it comes to this filing, I think I align probably closer to what Joanne was saying earlier. So perhaps if there's an option tonight to approve a pared down version of what is being proposed, perhaps that would be you know, an appropriate way forward, this one.
Right. So the question with doing the concern with doing a pared down version is what constitutes how many trees would that be? Which ones would be targeted in particular, and why those, and what would be phase 2 and phase 3, and over what time period? If this is something that you want to address all of this, and what would be planted in its place, because it sounds like we're not all completely sold on the idea of beach grass as the only replacement option. And I know that Gail just mentioned some other possible species. I'm thinking that there's maybe not enough detail in this for me to approve part of it at this point without seeing it kind of presented as, let's do this much first and then maybe this much second and so on. So what would be the priority items that we would permit this here, and what would we take out of the application? Greg?
It seems like sapling removal would be one thing that you'd want to do right off the bat. I mean, if you're taking out the small saplings, just to kind of stop the problem from getting worse over time, like the beginning. Also, I'm not an expert in plants, but maybe there are plants that are more resistant. Maybe seagrass or beach grass is sensitive to this problem, but some other types of plants that are, good for the bank may be more resistant to the effects of this tree. So those
I just want to say that the beach grass has done better than anything else I've planted. I had permission to plant some other plants, and they did not survive, interesting enough. Where the beach grass, it does. As I said, it is competing with the roots and the what do we call it? The branches. So it can't grow. But I have been successful with it.
But if you're flush cutting, the roots still remain. So how will that enable the beach grass to grow in those areas?
It's the arms of the, it's not the right word, the branches. The branches grow and grow and grow wider and wider and wider. And so it's cutting out the sun for the beach grass or any other plants to actually grow. I mean, as I said, I have other natives there, and for instance, the oaks, for instance, and that's a problem. They're dying, and it could be also from the it's a harsh environment for sure. But when I have flush cut things, it has new life, and I think I would encourage the oaks to grow because they've done very well on the property. And I don't even know if you can buy that species. Be interesting. I would certainly go to Sylvan's and inquire because it's very good, and it's low growing, which is also good because the northeastern winds and such. It's very hard.
I wasn't out at the site. Would that be white oak that you have growing there? Because that should do well in that environment.
It's interesting. I don't know what it is. It's a low growing oak, and I haven't identified it yet, to be honest with you.
Or maybe a scrub oak.
I'll have to.
Alex?
Yeah, I think it was either a scrub oak or a bare oak.
Okay.
We saw a couple of those on the coastal bank.
Okay.
They're excellent.
Joanne? Well, Joanne and then Chuck.
I'll just say very quickly, it sounds to me like we're willing to consider a phased plan. Maybe, and the applicant sounds like she has a pretty decent grasp of what she's talking about. So maybe she can work with Alex and come up with something that we could bring to the next meeting if she's okay with it. Unless I'm reading anybody wrong, it sounds like that could be a good way forward.
Okay, yeah, I'm okay with that. Thank you.
Chuck?
I think everybody needs to, so I can start out by offering a suggestion on how to prioritize what to take out first and what to leave. And do that by considering the mechanics of the situation. You're talking about an environment with dominant northwest winds, with strong winds from the north and strong winds from the southwest. And that means the winds are always pushing from the bay toward the bank and toward shore, right? And so any tree with a meaningful trunk and meaningful umbrage, which is to say branches loaded with leaves, is going to be pushed backward away from the bay and toward the bank. And that is going to put rotational pressure, rotational stress on the roots such that the roots rotate up and away on the base side of the bank. And ultimately, if the tree gets high enough, loaded high enough, and a big enough wind comes along, it's going to push it over toward the shore, and the roots are going to pop out the side of the bank and take it out. I think it's a myth to think that large trees with trunks help stabilize banks. My own experience where we are is that it's exactly the opposite. So trees like scrub oak, beech plum, things like that, that tend to hang low to the ground and don't get much higher than 8 to 12 feet with widespread branches and leaf coverage, stabilize the bank from the standpoint of rain impact and erosion. And in that respect, they're very good. But if you're just looking for roots to get out and intertwine with all the sediments in the banks, grasses are better. So I support the idea of trying to use beach grass if you can. I support the idea of taking the trees out on the steeper part of the slope, and if you want to phase it, I'd consider doing it like that. That's it.
Janet?
I could be wrong. I'd have to ask Mike and Alex and Greg. But most of what I saw in their section of the dune, the coastal bank, were low-growing trees. I don't remember seeing anything over 5 feet, but I was not looking at the height specifically. Yes, there is a tall one at the top of the bank, but on the bank in their section, I don't remember seeing anything that was high. Most of it was very low. I don't have a problem with taking out the dead ones. I do have a problem with taking out some of the others. And as I said before, I'd like to have them marked. Thank you.
Okay, Mike, and then I think we need to kind of move it along here.
I just want to mention that the reason why they planted the black pines back in the 80s is because they are resistant to salt. They grow in salt sand. They're resistant to coastal wind. They do not get very high in this environment. If you're saying that trees are no good on a bank, that means all the trees on the coastal bank from way down in Rock Harbor all the way up should not be there because they're, according to Chuck, tearing out the bank. It's not the same. I don't think that's a little exaggeration. And also, I just want to point out, I've said it for 9 years, every time you talk about an invasive, I don't care if it's a mustard plant or a black pine, it is destroying the environment for the native plants, and that's simply not true. But we keep repeating it over and over, and that's all I have to say. And I'm willing to look at a plan that takes out some of them and puts in whatever else we decide on. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. So it sounds like what we would like you to do, Gail, is to consider all of our comments. Let us continue the meeting to our next meeting, and that you might provide us with a scaled down phased plan that addresses the concerns that we raised today.
Of course. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. And I think you could also speak with Alex about it, and hopefully we'll come up with something that we all can be comfortable with.
Sure, that seems fair. Thank you.
Okay, so if we could have a motion to continue this, would June 24th be okay with you, Gail? Would that be enough time?
I won't be here, but I'd probably be able to do it by Zoom, yeah. If
Okay,
not,
so
I will ask to continue it then. Yes.
Okay, because our next meeting after that would be July 8th.
Okay.
So if we'll try for the 24th, and then if it's not possible, you'll let Alex know, and
Yeah, of course.
we'll move it along. Okay.
All right,
So if
very
we could have a motion to continue this to June 24th.
So moved.
And is there a second? Okay. Janet?
Yes.
Chuck? Chuck?
Yes.
Joanne,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I am a yes. Okay, we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
All right, thank you very much. Good night.
Okay. Next up, we have a certificate of compliance filed by Forrest Schenck, Massachusetts EMF, SE 19-1890 for a transplanting eelgrass for habitat restoration at property located at First Encounter Beach, Subtidal. Welcome.
From DMF.
So we're hoping you might give us an overview of what you've done, how it's been going.
I have a quick presentation. Do you mind if I share my screen?
Yeah, oh, Wayne, can you make sure that Forrest can share his screen, please?
He went upstairs to open the door.
Ah, well, it looks like you're good to go. So,
Yeah, I can just, it looks like it's coming through. Right. Yeah, so just a little background of the project. We're looking at eelgrass restoration off of First Encounter Beach. Eelgrass is a subtidal marine plant pictured here in the slides. It's important habitat for a number of marine species, including some important fishery species, and also provides some other ecological functions in these coastal and estuarine settings. Specifically in Eastham, we were transplanting eelgrass from a location in the bay, a little bit closer to shore, an area where it had historically been, and where our some data we've been taking, preliminary data on temperature and light, and sediment suggested it may be able to grow here as well. And the transplant method involved moving adult plants. So again, we collected from a natural bed farther out in the bay, and we wove plants, about 600 shoots in total, into a burlap. It creates almost like an artificial rhizome network before the plants can establish their own. And the idea is that helps them anchor into the sediment before they can get established. And we do all this by hand on scuba diving underwater. So the timeline for this work, I mentioned from 2021 to 2023, we were doing some site selection field recon, which indicated that this site had potential for eelgrass. In April and May of last year, we hand collected the shoots and planted them, and we monitored them a month later in June. And we were planning to go again, if we'd seen greater survival, there's potential to move on with a larger scale restoration. But unfortunately, we didn't see any survival after a month. Here's some pictures of the test spawning, a diver planting the shoots, and actually, you know, right immediately after we planted the shoots, we noticed there were some spider crabs in the area that were starting to kind of pick at the shoots and undermine the discs. And unfortunately, we didn't have any means to handle it at the time. But when we went back in a month, we were able to see our kind of burlap disc still in place largely, but there was no eelgrass present in that time. But as kind of I outlined in the written report, we don't have a definitive answer for exactly what caused the failure in this setting, but our best guess was that it may have been these bioturbidian crabs that can be curious when there's disturbances to the sediment and when new shoots go in. We've definitely heard of other cases and experienced other cases where they can pull up the shoots in this setting, which is unfortunate. I also just throw the temperature plot. We had the logger out here monitoring water temperature during the month right after deployment. And this dotted line here is really where the 25 degrees Celsius, where eelgrass generally starts experiencing temperature stress. And at this time of year in Cape Cod Bay, we're well below that. So we don't think it was necessarily the environment that was, or the physical environment that was stressful. But again, it doesn't suggest that temperature was at play here. With that, again, at this point, we're not plan to proceed to the full-scale restoration again because the test plots weren't successful, and we don't have any further work planned in Eastham under this filing. And with that, I'll open up to questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I guess the crab said, ooh, a tasty meal, and that was the end of that, which is too bad. And any questions from the commission on this? No? Okay, so Janet and then Greg and then Mike.
I don't have a question. I'm sorry it wasn't successful. I was really looking forward to it, and when I was down at First Encounter a few times, it looked rather dismal. But I have since read that there's a certain type of crab that will eat the eelgrass, and that has quite a negative effect, maybe even more so at this time than temperature changes.
Yeah, there's definitely some documentation of green crabs in the literature, and we've also heard reports from other restoration practitioners around the state who have encountered spider crabs as well. So it's definitely a challenge.
Well, good luck in the future.
Hi.
Mike? Oh, I think it was Mike and then Greg, right? Or was it Greg and then?
Whatever.
Okay. Okay, I was just wondering, is there a way to build a crab-proof enclosure until the eelgrass becomes established? Just to let it get going?
Yeah, that's a good question, and there has been some work. I've recently was reading a paper from in Europe where they use it's similar to the burlap method we use, but it's actually a plastic mesh, and they believe it provides a little bit more physical deterrent for the crabs because it's a little bit more robust than the burlap. So that for this area could be a potential, solution, or in other areas where these bioturbators are causing or a pressure or a stressor. So, but it's the challenge. One of the challenges there is that there's also any surfaces you put out are often biofouled, and because eelgrass is a plant and needs light to grow, you're kind of balancing the attracting biofouling organisms on kind of caging or structure you put out there. So there is kind of that trade-off that we're trying to balance.
So you might need to put sea urchins out with them to eat the biomass, but go ahead, Greg.
Right. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Forrest, I was just wondering if it has transplantation of seagrass been successful anywhere in Cape Cod?
On Cape Cod, I believe in Pleasant Bay, they've had some limited success. The National Seashore has a restoration program out there. But no, I mean, it is a practice that is, characterized by, many failures and few successes. And that's not just on the Cape, but up statewide. And it is a challenge we're still wrestling with, and trying to understand how we can address that, because it is a habitat that is been in decline for a number of years, and but it's something I would say we have not cracked the code yet.
Is there anything we can do to reduce the decline? I mean, I can't speak to temperature, but is there anything that can be done?
Yeah, I mean, I think that temperature is a tough one because it's at almost a global scale, and it's hard to tackle. But I was sitting in on the meeting earlier with the discussion of the wastewater management, and nutrient loading and water quality is strong impacts on eelgrass, and that's, been correlated with declines, So, as best you can, at the local level, as best you can manage, inputs into your watersheds, which ultimately end up in the estuaries and the coasts, and, generally reduce light availability to these systems and stress eelgrass. That's a real key. And then, the other kind of local, action is, around, other uses, recreational uses of your coastal waters, and whether that's, boat moorings and anchoring practices, and just trying to avoid, the areas where eelgrass is still thriving, trying to minimize, impacts to that from, physical disturbance, whether that's, the, mooring block and chains or frequent anchoring. So, relatively simple things, but often hard to implement in practice.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Alex, anything from you? Nope. Okay, so
I'll just real quick. Yeah, sorry that your study didn't work out in the that spot, but I appreciate the time that you put into it, and it was nice getting out in the boat with you when we were scoping out locations. That was sometime last year. So thank you. Yeah, of course. Yeah, and thank you all for the support and your interest. I will say, just because this effort has failed, it's not something we are giving up on. So while we don't have any immediate plans to be back, I do hope we eventually find a solution to this.
Yeah. Well, I think we'd all be open if you wanted to come back and try something else. But we appreciate your work and your efforts. So I think we're at the point where somebody might make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for this project.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Okay. Janet?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Janet? I'm sorry, Joanne?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
And I am a yes. Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Next we have an administrative review filed by Michael Bonito. Applicant proposes to remove 5 trees at property located at 30 Briggsfield Road, map 08, parcel 308.
We've got one more certificate of compliance on the agenda.
Oh, I
Road.
apologize. I looked at that
Okay.
right before I started speaking and I skipped right over it. I apologize. We'll go back, we'll start with that. Certificate of compliance filed by Robert and Gwyneth Butera, local 2024-02 for the installation of a pool at property located at 220 Dire Prince Road, map 19, parcel 114A. And who's here to speak on this?
I'm Robert Butera. For some reason, my webcam is not working. I'm not sure why, and I apologize.
That's perfectly fine.
And Felipe Neves is here. He's the contractor who did the work, in case there's any questions for him as well.
I'm here, yes.
Okay. So I guess this is fairly straightforward. You guys got this done with this project pretty quickly.
It did not feel quick. You approved us in September, and we're about 95% done. So just as a quick summary, our front yard is basically a field. We built the pool exactly where cited in the field. We marked out the no disturb zone with some boulders that I'm never going to be able to move myself. The seeding of the conservation mix is taken like a weed, literally and figuratively. The only thing I did self-disclose to Alex is that we did not propose any plantings and you did not require any mitigating plantings. And near the end, working with Felipe, we decided to put some typical lawn plants in, Russian sage, Carl Forster seagrass. And when preparing for this, I realized, oh, the Conservation Commission has to approve plants. Like, it was total oversight on my part. So I'd like to talk to you about what we should do about that. I have some ideas, but I'd like to hear your thoughts first. And any other questions you might have about the entire project.
Okay, you're back in less than a year from when we permitted it for a certificate of compliance. So by our standards, that's really, really quick.
Okay. It
Yeah,
did not
so
feel that way.
no building project ever does. Yeah, so about the plants you planted, we usually require native plants
Right.
and Russian sage, and I'm not sure what else you planted there, but Russian sage is not a native plant.
Right.
And
Russian sage, Carl Forster seagrass, daylilies.
No, daylilies are definitely not a native plant. But so I was thinking that maybe just to mitigate the unpermitted planting, that you might consider planting some native species in addition to what you've already planted.
We could do that however you want to word it.
But let's see what the rest of the commission has to say. I know you guys were out there for a site visit, so looking for any comments you guys might have. Anybody? Greg?
Everything looked good. I mean, the project looked like it was, like you said, 95% complete. And some of the plants that he's referring to are the plants that border the swimming pool within a gated area.
Yeah, all these plants are along the fence, just inside the fence, inside the swimming pool area.
And I think adding some native species would be a good resolution.
Janet?
Yes, it looked good to me also, and I appreciate that the homeowners came out and walked around with us. And I certainly wouldn't be able to move those boulders either.
Okay. Anybody else? So in terms of quantity of native plants, maybe you might consider matching what you've planted already, and that you might pick the species in consultation with our agent.
Okay. I don't think we could match the number we have due to the density, but we could remove some and make it even.
Oh, I don't know if we feel like, how do you guys feel about needing to remove? So any thoughts on quantity, Alex?
I like the idea of matching the quantity, but is the commission open to these plantings going elsewhere besides around the pool? Can they go somewhere else on the property?
I'd be open to somewhere still within the buffer zone. I think it looks like everybody else is okay with that. Mike?
I just want to say that, yeah, I think that's a good idea. Just put them somewhere else.
So can I ask a question? Can I plant anywhere in the buffer zone or just 50 to 100 feet?
Well, I think we kind of, well, if it's native plantings, I think it's okay to put it pretty much anywhere.
Okay.
In consultation with Alex, and because this wasn't part of the initial filing, just to even out the paperwork, we're thinking that maybe if you did the planting as an administrative review.
Okay, we can do that.
And Alex can approve that. Okay. That okay with everybody?
So you would not, it would not be this order of conditions. You would have us do a separate administrative review for the plantings once we consult with Alex about what to plant.
Right, and you would file that through the normal system, and then Alex can sign off on it, and you don't have to come back to us.
Okay.
Okay, so if we could have, is that okay, Alex? Did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was just confirming, but you answered my question, so I'm comfortable with the road you proposed.
Okay, so if we could have a motion for a certificate of compliance for local 2024-02 with the condition that the applicant file a administrative review to plant an equal number of native plants, location in consultation with the agent to match the plants that were unpermitted.
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second,
Okay, Mike,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Janet,
yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Joanne,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So thank you so much. Enjoy your pool and your plants.
Thank you.
Okay, and now we have administrative review filed by Michael Bonito. Applicant proposes to remove 5 trees at property located at 30 Bricksfield Road, map 08, parcel 308E. And is the applicant here, and does the applicant wish to say anything?
Yes,
Oh, you're at Town Hall.
Yes, I'm
Hi.
at Town Hall. Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I just lost my notes. I apologize.
I do that every meeting.
Yeah. It was that 3-foot walk. So my name's Mike Bonito, and we purchased the home back in July of '24 and put a new roof on in November of '24. There are 5 trees in question that I was requesting the committee to remove for concerns about the property itself as it relates to limbs, branches, damage to the roof, growth. They create quite a canopy. It's tough for anything really but moss to grow below. And so we had requested, I did submit a PowerPoint. I don't know if you have access to that PowerPoint. I know some of you did a site visit as well. So what we tried to do in the PowerPoint was mark the 5 trees working left to right on the property. And I included photos of the trees at different stages. I think some were taken in the winter and some were taken in the spring. But just point being a concern, I also submitted when we did apply for insurance for homeowners insurance through Mass Property, they had put a stipulation that the trees must be pruned away from the home. I did request from the agent a copy of that I included, and he also stated that, just concerns moving forward as far as renewals, or future cancellations, that it would be suggested that some of those trees be considered for removal. So I'm just trying to do my part as it relates to that, and hope you'll take that into consideration. And then, of course, I had questions as it relates to mitigation. This is my first time in this environment, so I wasn't sure. Mitigation, I was told, could be 2 to 1, it could be 0 to 1. They're sort of shrubs could be taken into consideration. I'm more than happy to plant any type of native shrubs, as many as required, really, to make the property sort of offset the tree removal. I was trying to avoid anything else that has height because, in my opinion, there's a lot of trees around the house. And so I know that's subjective, but in the description it said, it depends on whether or not the property is considered well vegetated. So sort of a subjective thing that I guess I'd need input from the committee. And so that's why I'm here. Oh, is she muted? I'm sorry, I can't hear.
I am muted again,
Okay,
and I've been
that's
doing
okay.
that all evening, so I apologize.
No problem.
So that's part of the reason why we have site visits, so that members of the commission can go out and see everything in sight, see how vegetated it is, and kind of look at the trees in relation to the house and so on. And I'm going to ask again the people who are out on the site visit if they want to start us off. How about Mike for a change?
Okay, we were out there as the applicant stated. It is it's well treed. We did mention while we were out there that the trees that are in question all look very healthy. So but some of them do have limbs over the house. And we were wondering if the limbs could be pruned and the tree saved. One of the trees by the driveway, we couldn't really see a good reason to take it down at all. But again, we all, at the site, we told them that it's pretty common to be 2 for 1. But it is well vegetated, so maybe we would do a combination of some ground shrubs and some trees, but there would definitely have to be some kind of mitigation. But like I said, the trees are they look very healthy. They're not all that old, so they still have kind of a long life. So if they were the ones that are leaning over the roof, I could see pruning those. I agree with that. That's my comments.
Okay. Anybody else? Janet?
I concur with Mike. The trees all looked very healthy. I understand the insurance company being concerned about branches of trees, even if they are healthy, extending over the roof line, because I have had a letter from my insurance company asking for removal of branches that are over the roof. So I don't have a problem with the tree being completely removed. That's at the back of the house by the porch. I would like the trees beside the house on the right side, otherwise to be pruned. The tree by the driveway, I don't see a need to remove. It's not near the house, and the branches don't extend over the house at all. And I don't see a need to remove the tree that's sort of in the middle of the front yard. So did I say that the trees were marked, which was helpful to us? We could identify them very easily, and the homeowners were kind enough to come out. In fact, we had seen them at Town Hall, but we didn't know they were the homeowners. They were going back and forth trying to figure out where we were meeting. So I appreciate them being there and talking to us. Thank you.
Joanne?
Hey, yeah, I'm just reading the letter from the insurance company. It does say that they need to be pruned away from the home and not removed. I value, though, the input from the owners that they may want to remove some of them, which I'm not necessarily opposed to. I think Janet was laying out some good, a good sense of which ones might be more dangerous than others. And as some folks have suggested, it seems like I'm looking at the Google Maps and it looks like it's pretty well, treed. So some shrubbery as mitigation I would be fine with, but noting that my fellow commissioners have said these are pretty healthy trees, I wanted to maybe ask the homeowners, did they have additional information from the insurance company that we don't have that suggests tree removal, or kind of what those added details might be? And then I certainly would support pruning and perhaps removal of a couple of trees that are kind of pose the most danger, but wanted to kind of ask if there's any added detail that the owners might be able to provide. Thanks.
So Mike, if you want to respond.
Sure. So to answer, I'm sorry, I lost track of the names. Joanne, I sent just an email to Alex. Actually, my partner did. Emily sent an email from the Ironside, the insurance company. So that is on file, I guess. I could read it to you if you'd like. But so yes, I submitted that. I can find it if you give me 1 second. I'm sorry.
So the commission did get that in an email late this afternoon. I don't know if
Okay.
everybody had a chance to see it.
Well, what had happened was we couldn't find the document we referenced at the on-site visit, and so we reached out and said, do you mind sending us that document? And that was the response that we got. So we just emailed it, forwarded to, like I said, to Alex, but it basically states, hi, Mike and Emily, please see the attached remedial condition notifications from MPIUA regarding your home insurance in an effort to make sure there is no adverse impact. And then in parentheses, it reads non-renewal or cancellation. On getting your homeowner's home insurance coverage renewed, it is suggested that you get the trees removed that are encroaching the house and the home on your property. Attached are the photos from the carrier's inspection as well. Please let me know if you have any questions. Best, Joe McCabe, Ironside Insurance Group. So that's on file. The only other thing, I guess, as far as comments is, there's no question, I never suggested the trees weren't healthy. They look very healthy, too healthy for me, to be honest. I say that tongue in cheek. But they have so many branches sprouting off of the trunks that certainly I would say at least I would request in some of those trees to be pruned. But the one, I do want to just speak to the driveway. I recognize the tree that hangs over the driveway is no threat to the house. I didn't mean to mislead anyone. That's just more or less where cars would be parked. And quite honestly, I care far less about the vehicles than I do the home itself. But that was the reason for that. It just hangs over. And oftentimes, some of these trees are really shedding some significant size limbs. We had one today during the site visit that's dangling that is certainly a hazard. I have four children, so I don't want to suggest the sky is falling, but that limb could fall at any moment, and I think that was pretty obvious. So the one over the driveway, I concede, that was more a concern over the cars, not the end of the world. I think my primary concern was the one, I think it's tree number 5, the one, I think it was Janet that pointed that one out as far as being the biggest threat. It is very, very close to the house, and it's going right up into the screen and porch. The other two trees, 3 and 4, if you look at the way they are leaning towards the house. Their branches are over the house. I don't know if you can quite tell by the photos. You can, obviously, from the site visit. Those two are a concern as well for me. I agree with Janet, selfishly, tree 2 is dead center in front of the house, and it sort of creates less of a concern to the house, I would say. If it's going, it could fall on the house, but that one I was more concerned with just everything living below it. It sort of creates, like a major canopy effect. I'm stealing that term, I guess, from Greg, I believe it was. But nonetheless, that's sort of the position. I would request at least to prune. If we can't remove, I would love to see 3, 4, and 5 removed, and I guess if there was some type of concession, 1 and 2 pruned up a bit, respectfully.
Okay, so I just have a question about the insurance, that it variously says prune the trees that are overhanging, and it elsewhere says remove.
Mm-hmm.
So that seems like a little bit of a conflict.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't work for the insurance. I don't know how they operate, but when we were applying for the loan, I had a couple of insurance agents come out to the house, obviously to get homeowners insurance, and we were able to solidify a policy. And the original document from that policy is actually included in the email, so you should have that as well. And you'll notice in that document it states removed, and they included a series of photos. But I think at the time, I don't know, maybe it was the time of year, and I don't know. But in the email today, I don't know if it's getting more difficult to get homeowners insurance, and they're getting I have no idea. I don't know how the policy works, but I certainly don't want to have an issue on a move forward basis with an extension. I certainly don't want to have more so a tree on the house.
Right.
I do want to say too, I sort of let off this and I got astray, but in one of the photos, it's pretty obvious that the green effect on the roof, that was caused by the trees. I can pull up the PowerPoint to see if I have, if I can reference the image.
That's tree 5, right?
Yes. So, point being that was the best angle I could get because it's tough to actually see the roof in a lot of cases. The roof was in pretty tough shape, and so we replaced the roof. So that's another factor. Obviously, it's not just the threat of the tree falling, but it's the negative effect that the trees are having on the actual dwelling itself.
Right.
So that was, again, I'm requesting that to be considered.
Well, it sounds to me like the commission would be okay with tree 5 coming out. The other ones, it really seemed like anything that's overhanging the house, the commission might like to see pruned instead of removed. And then certainly anything that's dangling and causing a safety hazard, we would agree to have removed in terms of limbs. I think I've summarized it well, but Joanne and then Janet.
Did I beat Janet to the hand by 1 second? Yeah, I'm just thinking. So it's not clear. I see the email and the snippet from the email that was forwarded, as well as the actual copy of the letter from the insurance company, and it says what is it? The trees to the rear and the right of the house. Which I think logically we can see on the map, but first it says pruning and then it says removal. I don't want to cause any problems for your insurance, and I don't think folks on the commission do either. If it's correct that the insurance company kind of bumped it up a notch and said you really should remove these trees, but I think we should get like clear documentation that is the case. And if that is the case, I would be okay with mitigation, shrubs prolific throughout in order to mitigate this. Again, not wanting to cause problems for insuring a home. But if that kind of inconsistency can't be resolved, then I think we roll back to the pruning of the trees. So I'm not sure, at least for my part, we can completely answer this question today. Again, not wanting to cause problems for being able to insure this home. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Okay. Janet?
I like what Joanne said. I wouldn't have a problem with that. Otherwise, I did look at the diagram. 5, I wouldn't have a problem with taking down. 3 and 4 I'd like pruned, and 1 and 2 I would like to keep. And I also like the idea of getting a clear comment. It sounds as if the letter from the insurance company stated clearly that they wanted the trees pruned, and then maybe an insurance agent said remove. And what I noticed, as I said, from my insurance company was they said, prune the branches that are over the roof. Even though some of the trees are very close to the house, they didn't say that they should be removed. That's why I questioned it. Thank
Okay,
you.
so let's try this. If we might send Mike back to his insurance company just to clarify pruning versus removal. But if we were to permit the removal of tree 5 and 3 and 4, because it sounds like nobody wants to permit 1 and 2, but we would allow a removal of anything that's dangling in a safety hazard, right? So if we were to permit the removal of tree 5 plus tree 3 and 4, let's talk a bit about what the mitigation we'd like to see so that the homeowner would be,
Karen,
yeah.
Mike and I both suggested, I think, pruning 3 and 4, not taking them down completely.
Right, but just in case, it sounds like some of the commission is in favor of removing it if the insurance company is insistent, because, so this is, if we send the homeowner back to the insurance company to get a definitive answer, I just want to explore the options if he comes back and says, yes, they really want those trees down, if we would permit that, and what the mitigation would be if we allowed that to be removed, and what the mitigation for tree 5 would be. I'm thinking we perhaps might be able to permit this with some contingency so that he might not have to come back, if we're okay with that, or we could have him find out and then come back and have another discussion, depending upon. But I think it would be good just to talk about mitigation options at this point, just so that he has a clear picture on what is in the offing here. So if anybody has thoughts on mitigation, how much it would be, how many shrubs. So if it was 1 tree or if it was 3 trees. So it's a well-vegetated site. Would we want to see 2 for 1 shrub, so 1 tree to 2 shrubs, perhaps? What are you all thinking here?
I think that's a good
I would
idea.
say replace them 1 for 1, flowering dogwoods and eastern redbuds.
Okay, Chuck, it would be helpful if you raise your hand, so, because I was about to call on Greg, but you can go first and then we'll go to Greg. But I couldn't understand what you were saying. You were breaking up a bit.
All right. Can you hear me all right now?
Yes.
Okay. It is a pretty thickly vegetated piece of land. They are large trees, so they've got a large crown, but that's also the problem. I'm not sure that 2-to-1 mitigation is necessarily required. I would say replace them with flowering dogwoods or eastern redbuds, and then maybe a couple of other low shrubs around the periphery of the open area. And that would certainly begin to compensate as the dogwoods and redbuds get a little bigger. They won't have quite the same coverage, but it's flat land. I don't think it's going to make a huge difference. Those things they're very tall trees, and that's a big risk when big wind comes along.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, I agree with Chuck with respect to, I don't think we need any more canopy trees. There's between 10 and 15 very healthy trees there already. And it's pretty well covered. All the land seems to be covered by shadow. So I would say that mitigation with 2 of smaller types of trees would be appropriate. I also think that tree number 3 on the right side of the house, if they were just to prune that's more than half the tree that's hanging over. And I think that tree might go anyways, but I'm not an arborist. Someone would have to tell us that.
Okay. I was perhaps suggesting 2-to-1 in terms of shrubs rather than replacement trees.
Yeah, that sounds good.
But yeah. So what do we want to do? Do we want to send Mike off to find out and come back in 2 weeks? Or we could do a contingent plan. Joanne?
All right, so my contingent plan is, let's get the insurance figured out. For every tree that does have to come down, we do a 2-to-1, either the small trees or the shrubs.
Shrubs. So we're talking
pruning.
Okay, so we're talking about number 5, we're okay with removing all of those.
Yeah, I think, so I think, I honestly think we got to follow what the insurance says. We'll get a clarification then they can go back to Alex, and for every tree that is required to come down, it's a 2-to-1. Anything that is not required that has been marked can be pruned.
Right. And then 1 and 2, they can cut anything dangling, but otherwise leave alone.
I mean, unless the insurance company has something to say about it.
Well, they're pretty far from the house, so. Right. Okay. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yes.
Okay. So does that sound okay with you, Mike, the homeowner?
Do you mind, can you just recap that again?
Okay, I will recap. So we'd like to get confirmation from the insurance company that they.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah.
Okay.
But
So
if the insurance company, can we talk 2 scenarios, just to give me some direction? If they say, hey, these 3 trees need to be removed, you'll grant me that, and we'll do a 2-to-1 shrub.
Right. So let me just run through it. So
Okay.
we want we're talking about giving you a conditional permit that lets you not have to come back to us.
Okay.
So we want you to go out and talk to your insurance company and find out if they're okay with pruning or they want the trees to come out. And I guess we're looking most specifically at trees 3 and 4, which overhang the house, and 1 and 2 seem not to be in that situation.
Okay.
But if the insurance company is okay with pruning, then we'll have 2-to-1 mitigation for tree number 5 and let you prune whatever you need to do plus whatever's dangling on 1 and 2. If the insurance company says, yes, trees 3 and 4 have to go, then we want 2-to-1 mitigation in the form of either small trees or shrubs for all 3 of the trees that would be removed.
Okay.
Does that sound okay?
Yeah. So if they say prune, let's say they say, in the original document, it said prune the trees that hang over. If I prune, is there any mediation? Do I still do 2 shrubs for every tree I prune?
We're saying that
Okay.
we want mitigation for trees that are coming out and that we're okay with pruning without mitigation.
Okay. If they come back and suggest that it's prune only, because I don't know what they're going to say.
Right.
Is there no other consideration as from a practical standpoint of removing? Is removing off the table? This just comes down to the insurance?
Well, it doesn't sound like most.
Little disconnect from me.
It sounds like most of the commission is not in favor of having you remove the trees if they can be pruned.
Okay. Even tree 5?
Tree 5, we're all okay with you removing.
Okay.
That seems to be a hazard tree, and everybody seems okay with that tree coming out.
Okay.
So tree 5, you can remove. 3 and 4, you have to consult with the insurance company and figure out whether it's remove or prune. And 1 to 2, you can cut anything dangling, but we want them to remain.
Yep. Okay.
And then the mitigation goes with the trees. So if you're taking it out, it gets 2-to-1. If you're pruning, it doesn't need anything.
Doesn't apply. Okay. My last final question. Is it okay?
You can have as many questions as you want.
No, I don't want to hold people up. Is the, when you say prune, if I'm taking a significant limb off the tree, to me, that's like a pruning. But if there are sort of low-hanging small branches that look sort of unkept, is that fair game to clean up or no? That's okay? Okay.
I think that's okay.
Meaning like unkept branches that look dead.
But we would like you to consult with Alex before the work
Cool.
gets done.
Okay.
And he's our agent, so he can say yes or no. Okay. So I think we're all good here. So if we could have a motion to approve the removal of tree number 5, to have the applicant consult with this insurance company and determine what they want in terms of pruning or removal for trees number 3 and 4, and then allow either the pruning or removal for the insurance company information, and with mitigation for tree 5 and any removed trees at 2-to-1, small trees or shrubs, and then number 2, that he may cut anything dangling but the trees remain. And this should be done in consultation with our agent.
Okay.
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Joanne,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I am a yes. So I hope we haven't confused you too much, but Alex can help you sort it out if we have. So
Thank you for the
good,
explanation.
good luck. Enjoy your new home.
Appreciate it. Have a good night.
Okay, so next up, administrative review filed by David Henkel. Applicant proposes to prune back existing shrubs and plants that were burned by a brush fire and plant new vegetation at property located at 35 Bayberry Lane, map 13, parcel 159. And is somebody here to speak on this? Nobody? Okay, Alex, you want to give a quick overview?
Yeah, I did communicate with the property owners. I think they were having issues fitting this meeting in with their schedule. So given that it's kind of a pretty straightforward administrative review, I told them I could speak to this project to the commission. Essentially, there's shrubbery on the property that was singed in a brush fire, and the applicant's looking to replace the plantings in kind, along with replacing a split rail fence 1-to-1 as well. Let me pull this up real quick. Plantings included, kind of down on the coastal bank, some additional beach grass. There were some viburnums going in on more of the upland area along the property line, and then quite a few bayberries going in as well. I think most of the bayberries on the property, from what I can tell, at least on the surface, appeared pretty dead. I think there's a couple that may come back, but you could already see there are signs of the bayberry resprouting. It seems like most of the beach grass has fully recovered, but there are some bare spots, which is where the homeowner would like to plant the plugs. I do have some concern about those beach grass plugs going in. As we approach the height of summer, perhaps it's best for the homeowner to delay the planting of the beach grass until the fall. But I think with some temporary irrigation for the more herbaceous plantings, I don't see any issue with them taking currently. So those are my thoughts.
Okay. And I know you guys were out there. Any comments from the site visit? Greg?
No, it was pretty straightforward, just as Alex described. Nothing complex, just a replacement of what was burned.
Mike?
I concur with Greg and Alex. Pretty straightforward. Looks okay.
Okay. Any other comments from the commission? So it looks like we're looking for a motion to approve with the suggestion that the beach grass installation be delayed in the fall and that temporary irrigation be allowed for the herbaceous plants. Somebody would like to make that motion. Go ahead. Alex, something else?
I think I would like to do a site visit out on the property prior to work starting. So if the commission would be able to condition that as well.
Okay, so a motion to allow the project temporary above ground irrigation for herbaceous plants, suggesting a delay in planting the beach grass till the fall, and a site visit with notification to the Conservation Department and a site visit before any work is done.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Chuck?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
And I am a yes. Okay, next, we have a after the fact notice of intent filed by Charles and Carol Sardinini, a violation. Applicant proposes a gravel fire pit area and planting native species a property located at 70 Log Cabin Road, map 21, parcel 061. And they've requested a continuation to June 24th, as we have not yet received the DEP number. So if somebody would make a motion to continue.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Greg,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Joanne,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Chuck, Janet,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay, next we have continuation of notice of intent filed by Bernard and Diane Durante. Applicant proposes a pier, ramp, and float for private boating access at 255 Mary Chase Road, map 18, parcel 80A, and they have requested to withdraw the application. So we might just have a motion to accept the withdrawal.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Okay, Greg,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes.
Joanne,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay. Next up, we have continuation of notice of intent filed by Sarah Harvey. Applicant proposes to construct a concrete paver block patio, a small set of stairs, and a minor change to the driveway at property located at 880 North Sunken Meadow, map 01, parcel 077. And this was continued to allow them to address the ACEC and some information about the pavers, and as well as marking the site with stakes. Okay, and Paul Shea, if you'd like to talk about the project.
Yes, good evening. Just making sure you can hear me correctly?
Yes.
Or? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Since the last hearing, I believe that, the commission obviously requested that the site be staked. That was staked out pretty much right after the last hearing that we had. That was staked out. There was a decision by the property owner to actually remove the turnaround area that was being proposed with the driveway. That is no longer part of the project. We added a note to the site plan that the entire property is located within the Wellfleet Harbor ACEC. We've added, I submitted reports to Alex along with revised site plans for the property. The extra report that we added basically addresses issues with the ACEC and proposed mitigation. And the proposed patio has pervious areas around each one of the blocks that's being proposed. I believe Kevin Norton from Norton Landscaping is available on the Zoom tonight to talk about anything regarding the actual construction of the patio area. We are proposing a Cape Cod lawn area in the front of the property towards the road. Basically within the 50-foot to 100-foot buffer zone, includes, part of the area that we're going to be proposing native herbaceous plantings within the seed mix that he wants to use within the 50 to 100-foot buffer zone. There was some discussion, I believe, between Kevin Norton and Alex that they would like to remove one dead pitch pine that is located down towards the edge of wetlands on the plan, and to replace them with with two new pitch pine saplings located within the 50-foot buffer zone, I guess close towards the edge of wetlands. And also, there are two existing mature rhododendron shrubs which are located very close to one of the structures within the property. The applicant would like to move those two mature rhododendron shrubs to within the 50-foot buffer zone area, moving towards the coastal bank, is to basically Kevin Norton feels that he can successfully move those and safely and put them in and be extra protection within the 50-foot buffer zone. Be happy to answer any questions. And again, you have revised site plans that was submitted to the commission.
Okay, so I want to thank you for addressing all of those concerns. And I'm going to ask the members of the commission who are out for a site visit if they want to speak first. Greg?
I just wanted to thank you very much for staking out the site. I have to say, when we went out there the first time, I found it confusing, but today it was very clear to me exactly what you were planning on doing, and it looks fine to me.
Thank you.
Okay. Janet?
I concur with Greg.
Okay.
And very well staked, very clear to understand. And I don't have a problem with what they're proposing. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. I also found the revised plans well done and addressing all of our concerns, and I have no issues with this project. Greg, did you have something else? No. Okay. Alex, anything from you? Okay. So now we could get to the easy part, that if we might have, I'm sorry, just looking for my notes here. So if we might have a motion to approve this project with special conditions for single family dwelling with landscaping.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Mike?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
And I am a yes. So we are done. Thank you so much.
Very much.
Next. What's my agenda again? There we go. Okay, next we have a continuation of notice of intent filed by Nathan Nickerson and Susan Buckley. Applicant proposes to install a seasonal dock at property located at 30 Adams Way, map 11, parcel 187A. And they also have requested a continuance until June 24th. So if we could have a motion to continue.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Chuck?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
And I am a yes. Okay, next up, we have minutes for May 27th, 2025, and Amy mailed out a revised version of that. Did everybody get a chance to look at it?
Yes.
Okay. Any comments, questions, changes? No? Okay. So otherwise, a motion to approve?
So moved.
Move to approve.
And a second?
Second.
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
And I am a yes. Okay, now we're looking at violations, and I'm going to ask Alex to take it over here.
Sure. So I'll start with 150 State Highway. As the commission is aware, an enforcement order was issued on May 15th. For the removal of the fence, the commission gave the property owner until May 28th to remove the fence. That did not happen. So starting May 29th, I have been issuing $100 a day citations to the property owner. And we also issued a stop work order for all future work within the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction. As of today, the 10th, the fence still remains in place. We swung by briefly during our site visits this morning. Does the commission have any questions about that one? It's still kind of taking that one kind of day by day.
I think we're just leaving it there and seeing what happens. I guess we'll discuss again at the next meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll continue to update the commission on the status of that one. So we'll have that on the next agenda as well. For 157 Brownell Road, the commission sent a signed letter to the property owner on April 8th, giving the property owner 60 days to submit the deconstruction protocol for this June 10th meeting. That deadline has now lapsed, and in the letter we outlined that if this deadline was not met, the commission, may consider enforcement actions. So I think at this point tonight, the commission should decide on how to proceed with 157 Brownell. That's fining them, or I'm not sure what any other options are. Perhaps Hillary might have some thoughts on this one as well. We haven't really received much communication from the property owner, unfortunately.
Yeah. Hillary, go ahead.
We have had a bit of email correspondence with him. He did apply for a building permit recently to demolish a section of the house, but there were no site plans, there was no engineered drawings, there was nothing to do about the septic system, other than he was planning to share a well with his neighbor and move the septic leach field to the back of the property, but there are no plans. So at that time, I took the opportunity to again send him the enforcement letter from the Conservation Commission and the enforcement letter from the Board of Health, and I heard nothing back from him. We have knocked up twice since that date as well. One time there was a dog home, the next time there was no one home, and no one has since answered the door for us, just to have a talk with him and let him know what was happening.
So he is aware that any work does require a permit from the Conservation Commission, and that it's not enough to just get a permit from the building department.
Yes, because when he applies for a building permit, the building permit gets stalled until there's a sign off from the health department and the conservation department.
And from your last Board of Health meeting, it looked like the Board of Health was planning to fine him as well.
Correct.
Okay, so it seems like the only lever we have in this matter is to issue fines. I don't know what else. You've tried communicating with him multiple times, and he has not responded to any of this. And so how else can we get his attention and get compliance than to go to the fine route? Thoughts from the rest of you? So do we want to start issuing him $100 a day fine until he does submit such plans and appears before us? Mike?
It appears we have no other choice. Hillary knocked on their door. We sent them letters. What else can you do?
Right. Okay, so seems like we should have a motion to instruct Alex to issue an enforcement order following up on the letter that we will be issuing a $100 a day fine up until such time as demolition plans are submitted for the house, the well, and the septic, and he appears before the commission to discuss.
Yeah.
Joanne?
Just one question. I'm not saying I disagree, but noting that doesn't he need an engineer to develop these removable plans, and is it not difficult to get an engineer most times? I'm not trying to make excuses for somebody who's been fairly delinquent, but I'm wondering if it's the submitting of the plans, or if somehow we at least get some contact that plans are underway. Maybe we're past that point, just putting it out there for discussion. Like any sort of response that, like, let's get a placeholder that I have heard you and I am in the process of preparing plans Is that enough, or do we actually need to see the plans?
It seems like we've had 2 months where we've let it out for him that we want these plans, and he could have been in touch and said, hey, I'm having trouble finding an engineer to do the site plans and the demolition plans for me, and I need more time. And he hasn't done that. He hasn't been in touch with the Board of Health to clear up their issue since January. And
yeah, I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you. Just kind of putting it out there to.
Yeah. So Hillary.
I was just going to add that he has been in contact with Ryder and Wilcox in the past and JC Ellis Design in the past. And there was one other one more recently, but nothing ever comes to fruition because he's still researching and checking the facts. And we've been going out to that property for over a year now, talking with Mr. Moot and trying to bring him along in a more compliant way. And
so he's had that chance.
He's had a lot of chances. We've knocked up a number of different times. We've spoken to him at his property. I've pointed him to coastal geologists and shoreline change specialists and check out this report, check out that report. And I don't know, the most promising thing we've gotten was a partially completed building permit application, nothing Board of Health related and nothing conservation related.
Oh.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Chuck.
Does anybody know if our fines accrue as an encumbrance on the deed, or are they simply on the books and that's it? There's no enforcement that goes with it?
They do not accrue on the deed as a lien. They're a civil ticket. The town clerk can, if they're not paid, ask for the court to issue, I guess, a warrant based on the non-payment. But I think that's kind of it. Am I correct, Hillary?
Yes, you are correct. They get issued, the town clerk gets a copy, the court officer gets a copy, and they have the right to an appeal. And if they appeal, then that's a process through the Superior Court. And then at some point, the court officer goes forward to demand their collection. Obviously, we use it as a tool for compliance. It's really not useful for much else. So hopefully, he will move swiftly at this point, realizing the severity of it.
We don't have anything else that we have to force any kind of compliance, except I guess the town, if it's an egregious violation, the town could sue, or if it's something within the WPA, the DEP could come into it, but this seems to be within our jurisdiction here, and this is our only tool at this point.
Okay.
So do we want to make a motion on this to instruct Alex to issue an enforcement order and do fines at $100 a day until such time as the plans are delivered and he appears in front of us?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Chuck?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay. All righty. Liaison reports. Anybody have anything? Open Space Committee meets next week. The Strategic Planning Committee still has its strategic plan survey open until June 15th. And that's all I have. Anything from CPA? Janet? No. And Mike has resigned from the Forest Committee, so the next thing we're going to have on our agenda is to appoint a liaison for the Forest Committee. And I reached out to Greg over the weekend and suggested he might enjoy that. I don't know if Joanne is interested as well.
I would wonder when the meetings are. I can't make meetings that are during the day, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Otherwise, yes, I love trees. So sure, I would do it.
Go ahead, Mike.
Meetings are an hour at the most. We have 4 a year. When we're talking about Wiley Park. So the last meeting, my last meeting, we were looking for a place for the next planting season. We just finished one down around the dog beach, and the debate was whether we should continue in that area or look elsewhere. So right now, they are looking elsewhere. And we're going to reconvene, they'll reconvene in November or so and decide where the next planting is. And you do that 4 times a year. And then the friends actually do the planting, which you can do too. That's it.
And are the meetings, what time are the meetings?
I used to do it 5 to 6. Before me, they did it 6 to 7. And it's usually in the library. And they Zoom it. You can Zoom it.
Okay. So talk it out between you, and I guess we'll support whatever you decide.
Greg, what do you have to say?
I recommend you.
That's easy. Joanne?
Let me say I'm interested, but as you guys all know, not to bring down the party, the federal workforce is in flux right now. So if you want to give me a couple of weeks to sort that out, I can confirm at our next meeting.
You have until I guess we'd want to appoint you by September.
Yeah, I should be able to figure it out by September.
And if Joanne doesn't do it, I'll do it. So
okay,
I'll be the backup.
I think that's a good plan.
Okay, we'll check back from time to time.
Table.
Okay, so that's that done. Education and training. Anybody have anything? Other discussion. So I just want to update you guys on our recruitment efforts to fill our current vacancy and our upcoming vacancy, because as of July 1st, we'll be down to 5 members. We've been doing some outreach, trying to get people interested. Alex and Hillary have been doing some targeted outreach, and today I met with Jackie Beebe to discuss the situation, and she's got a few people in mind, but we're looking at a new way of doing some more strategic and proactive recruitment. She suggested that we have Kayla work out a plan and put some materials together and do some targeted outreach to local media and Facebook and on the town website. We talked about having the search committee have a poster at the special town meeting. And I'm also on the agenda for the select board meeting on June 16th to discuss the issue with them. So if you guys have anybody that you think might like to volunteer for the commission, who might consider trying it on for a year to see if they'd like it, and not necessarily, I mean, it would be a 3-year term, but not necessarily agreeing to stay the whole time, but to try it on even, we'd be happy to hear from them. So, Mike, you have your hand up? Or is that left over? So any suggestions on recruitment? I'm happy to have them. This recruitment issue is a ongoing problem for the Board of Health and other regulatory boards, but primarily for us and the Board of Health. So anything Kyla is working on would include that board as well. And really, it's a tough sell. I don't know why. This is so much fun and we learn a lot and we get to meet everybody in town, but that's where we are. Okay. Anybody have anything else they want to say tonight? Hillary?
But you said we were going to be down to 5 members. I'm not sure whose term is up. but perhaps we can agree not to let them go until they find their own replacement.
Mike has decided not to re-up at the end of his term, at the end of the month. And I think it would be a tough sell to get him to hang out for a while longer.
Mike, can you come up with 3 possible replacement people? And we're happy to reach out to them.
I suggest Greg and Joanne.
To replace you on the Conservation Commission. Yeah, that would be nice if we could have some clones. But yeah. So it's yeah. So that means if we're down to 5, that we have to pay attention to a little more attention to attendance and make sure to let me know if you're not going to be able to attend a meeting, so we can make sure that we have 4 people who are qualified for the quorum. As you all know, that if you skip a meeting, you have to fill out the Mullen letter and watch the video in order to qualify again for the quorum, and you can't miss 2. So that becomes a concern with some of the more complex projects that go on forever and ever. And also that if we do have new people appointed, if they weren't already appointed and sitting when the matter opened, when we had our first hearing, they're not going to ever be eligible for the quorum. So just wanted to put that out in your head so that you have it there. Okay. And I think that's kind of it for the night. Thank you all. It was an interesting meeting, and I thank you all for your hard work and commitment. So if we might have a motion to adjourn.
Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, so if we could have a second from somebody.
Second.
Okay, Chuck?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I am a yes. Okay. Good night, everybody. See you in 2 weeks.